away from home. Meanwhile, Matsatsansa Putori says their kindness ended in Cairo. This is the Confederation Cup. Catch the return leg group stage clash between SuperSport United FC and Modern Future FC this Sunday, 25 February at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Aldrin Sampear, muhashi wa ntokoto na vutshila, wena masusa xivundza mayi, rito eka lava ri pfumalaka, rito leri hangalakeke na misava hinkwayo, ri haxa mbewu ya vutlhari. Xana i mani a nga ku miyetaka ke? I mani a nga miyetaka mpfumawulo wa rito ra ku ke? 326 yi tshama yi ri etindleve eka SAFM hikuva u yi phamela swakudya swa miehleketo hi dya yi tlhela hi xipa. Ndzi ri halala Aldrin Sampear, halala wena la tselekiweke eswitikweni swa vutlhari, a katingiwa etimbiteni ta vutivi, a sekiwa hi galaza ra vutshila. Loko ri mina ntombi ya mutonga n'wa xambula makhutla wa madyafu ri la tsundzuka n'wana hi ku heta, ndzi ku hluvulela xihuku, ndzi ri kula u ringana na ndlopfu. Halala Aldrin Sampear, halala.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 10 minutes after 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to the agenda. No, it's not the agenda. Jeez, what's happening? It must be the thing that's happening here in the studio. Good afternoon. Welcome to Beyond the Headline with me, Aldrin Sampear. We're with you from now up until 6 o'clock. So coming up on the show this afternoon, we will be in conversation with Bongani Baloyi, who is the leader of Chiluva Party. Remember that he's also the former mayor of Midvaal. So he asked about just over an hour now ago, saying that it's true that the Democratic Alliance practiced cadre deployment. When I was mayor of the Midvaal between 2013 to 2021, the municipality couldn't conclude a senior staff appointment without the approval of FedEx. It was standard procedure that all mayors applied to get approval of FedEx before municipality would conclude the appointment. This practice hasn't changed. If they have nothing to hide, they must release the minutes of FedEx, and you will see that they practiced the same cadre deployment that the ANC practice. And today there was a press briefing by the Secretary General of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal ahead of the ANC's election manifesto launch. Fikile Balula once again defending the cadre deployment policy of the ANC. And of course, this is also on the basis of the judgment that was handed down yesterday in the High Court, dismissing an application by the Democratic Alliance to declare the cadre deployment policy of the ANC unconstitutional. So we will be speaking to our reporter who is following that story, and Debo Mugobo will be joining us at 20 past 4. We speak to Bongani Baloyi, the leader of Chiluva, at 10 to 4 on his assertion that the DA also practices cadre deployment, and we're just waiting for confirmation from the Democratic Alliance around who they will bring on board to as a form of reply to what Bongani Baloyi has to say, what their take is on his assertion that that the DA also exercise cadre deployment. And then also on the show this afternoon, we speak to Kenny Mapanga, SABC News reporter. You may have heard in the news that the Supreme Court of Appeal has dismissed with cost the Department of Home Affairs bid to appeal a High Court ruling that invalidated Minister Mutwaledi's 2021 decision to terminate the Zimbabwean exemption permit. So that conversation is going to come up in the next short while. And then at 10 past 4, we have Floyd Chivambu, the EFF's Deputy President and Member of Parliament, who will be joining us in studio as we look at the EFF's economic proposals as per their manifesto. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032. Just before we go to that break, at 20 to 4, we'll be speaking to James Aphani, who is who's the manager of electoral operations at the Electoral Commission, and they say that South Africa have until Friday to register to vote for the upcoming elections. And remember that once the president has promulgated the election date, that means that the voters roll closes and you won't be able to register to vote. So you still have enough time to go online, register to vote, update your residential area as well if you have moved, update your details as well if you have moved, because the rules are a bit different this time around. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
So in conversation next with Kenny Mapanga, SABC News reporter. Earlier on today, Supreme Court of Appeal dismissed with cost the Department of Home Affairs bid to appeal the High Court rulings that invalidated Minister Motsoaledi's 2021 decision to terminate the Zimbabwean exemption permit. According to the SCA order, Motsoaledi's application was dismissed on the grounds that there is no reasonable prospect of success in an appeal and that there is no sound justification as to why an appeal should be heard. For more on this, we speak to Kenny Mapanga. Kenny, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So the Supreme Court of Appeal saying that we shouldn't even be listening to this application because there are no prospects of success.
Well, good afternoon to Aldrin and the listeners at home. Indeed, you may remember that when he first went to the Court of Assistance, that would be the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria, the Gauteng High Court said the same thing. Remember, what they found was that this was not a policy position, as the minister had argued, but it was actually an administrative one, and it hadn't been conducted in a lawful manner. So it wasn't validated and set aside, and I think the implications of that was that really all the minister would have to do is to do this process that led up to the termination of the ZEP. However, the minister didn't do that. He sought leave to appeal, which was not successful in the High Court. And then you can still go to the ACA and seek that special leave for appeal, which he wasn't successful at because the court found, after perusing those documents that were filed before the court, that there were no reasonable prospect of success.
Mm-hmm. Is it clear as yet why Minister Motsoaledi is pursuing this particular case, even though Cabinet has already decided late last year, that there will be an extension of the ZEP, the Zimbabwean exemption permit, as well as the permit that was granted to Basotho? Well,
the Cabinet decision to extend, or rather, let me say, grant another exemption, because you actually can't extend those permits, they're non-renewable. The reason why they did that is because the matter is still pending in court. Remember, in the second judgment, which is the judgment that was ruled in favor of the Zimbabwe Immigration Federation, it was an interim incident pending the conclusion of Part B. And we know that Part B, the challenge to the entire termination itself, which is what ZIF won, is in June this year, or is expected rather in June this year. So even though the Lesotho exemption permit and the Zimbabwean exemption permits were due to end, because the matters are still pending, and there are those safeguards in the form of these judgments, because he hasn't successfully appealed them, those permits basically had to be granted, again, those exemptions had to be granted pending the finality of this in the South African court.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Kenny Mapanga, SABC News reporter there on the decision by the SCA, that is the Supreme Court of Appeal, dismissing that application by the Minister of Home Affairs, Minister Aldrin Motsoaledi. And this is, of course, on the High Court decision that was also handed down. But then taking into consideration that a decision was also taken by Cabinet to issue new permits to Zimbabwean ZEP holders as well as Basotho exemption permit holders as well. And now you have this particular decision that has been taken. I wonder if the minister will decide to actually petition this the Constitutional Court, and whether the Constitutional Court will entertain the application. 0614-104-107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Our studio line is 086-000-2032.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why Outsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that Outsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
19 minutes after 3 o'clock. So global shipping is severely disrupted by the Houthi attacks on the ships heading to the Suez Canal. Across the Atlantic, the other canal vital to the global trade is also suffering from major disruptions, such as fewer ships are now getting through. The El Nino weather phenomenon contributed to a severe drought. The ACP said it is expected to increase the cost of shipping goods around the world. The Panama Canal greatly reduces the time and distance for the ships to travel between the Atlantic as well as the Pacific Ocean. Michelle Fleury has that story from BBC.
Is this the world's most expensive traffic jam? Ships lined up for days outside the Panama Canal last August. Roughly $270 billion worth of cargo flows through here each year. But this vital link between two oceans is running out of water, which is a huge problem for shipping companies and could spell trouble for global trade. The number of vessels that can pass through here each day has been slashed from 36 to 24. Jose Cervantes from shipping company Agunza told me this shortcut between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans is the natural route, warning if it's blocked, alternatives are needed, meaning more time and extra costs. Unlike the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal works by lifting boats up through a set of locks into an artificial lake 85 feet above sea level. But it means the canal here is reliant on rainwater, which is in short supply.
2023 has been the second driest year in the history of the Panama Canal.
Ilia Espina de Marotta, the canal's chief sustainability officer, says the drought, made worse by the El Nino weather phenomenon, is expected to last until May.
The big problem we're having is lack of rain. In the rainy season, which goes from May until December, we're supposed to get tons of rain and fill the lakes. This year, there was very little rain. We had El Nino year. And now that we're in summer, the lake started the summer with very low level. So we had to cut down on number of ships being able to transit the canal to maintain the lake level through the summer.
On Gatun Lake, the freshwater reservoir that feeds the locks, the canal's hydrologist Nelson Guerra showed us firsthand the scale of the problem.
The level is, as you see in the rule, is 81.20 feet. The level should be 5 feet more than now.
To conserve water, fewer boats are allowed to pass through the Panama Canal each day. This is one of the lucky ones. But a changing climate is putting billions of dollars of trade at risk and raises difficult questions about the future of this engineering marvel. The Canal Authority is trying to reuse as much water as possible. It's considering building more reservoirs to store water and is even exploring cloud seeding to make it rain more.
We believe it's climate change. If you look at the world 2023, the Amazon River, very low. Mississippi River had to stop transits, very low level. So it's not only Panama, it's the world that has seen a lot of different climate situations this 2023.
While other routes suffer disruption from politics and piracy, the problems at the Panama Canal are a reminder that climate change may yet be the biggest crisis for global trade. Michelle Fleury, BBC News, Panama Canal.
#SAFMBTH.
Let's take your voice notes on 0614 104 107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Okay, 086 000 2032, and our WhatsApp voice note line is 0614 104 107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear. Geez, we seem to be having problems with our systems today. Apologies. And by the way, if you are on your phone perhaps and maybe have your laptop close to you or your PC, another reminder that we are streaming live on YouTube. This is on the SAFM platforms. This is the YouTube channel, as well as on the Twitter feed. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Aldrin. It's fine. The DA also practiced this cater deployment thing. But the problem that the ANC one is the one which is running the country. DA is only running the Western Cape, the small one. The biggest crooks, they are the one who are running the country. So how come we keep on comparing DA and the ANC cadre deployment? No. I understand, okay, we can continue to compare, but the people who are costing us are the ANC one.
Hi, Aldrin. This is to me in Phosphorus. Can you kindly ask Bongani Baloyi in your interview, can you ask him where is he getting his funding for starting his own party? I just want to know where is he getting his funding. All these parties that are coming up, we must ask these people where they're getting money, because it seems to be a lot of money to start a party. Where are they getting their money?
#SAFMBTH.
It is 25 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Ibrahim Dean, who's a research and political analyst. Libyan authorities have reached an agreement with the militias that will see them vacate the country's capital, Tripoli, by early April this year. The agreement comes after a series of deadly clashes in the city in recent months. For more on this latest deal, for more on what this latest deal entails and what it means for the stability of the city and the country at large, we speak to Ibrahim Dean. Ibrahim, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. What does the minister mean when they say that the forces, or when he says that the armed groups will be replaced by regular forces?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. So, Libya since 2011, since the overthrow of Gaddafi, has actually been ruled by militia groupings. And the different militia groupings are allied to different factions, different tribes. I mean, Libya already has two governments. Now, what has happened is these armed groupings have actually, in a sense, for the most part, dictated the politics of the situation. The political power is actually generally superseded by the militia power. And, you know, in Tripoli, there's actually been a lot of instability over the past couple of years, mainly because some of the militia groupings support the government in the east, some support the government in the west, others are allied to, you know, different other tribes. And, you know, there has been obviously clashes as these groups try to consolidate control. Now, you know, what this deal actually means is, I mean, one is, you know, it's very unclear because there is no real Libyan National Army. And what calls themselves the Libyan National Army is actually a militia grouping in the east. So it looks more likely as if, you know, it's going to be members affiliated to the government itself in Tripoli, probably much less armed members, and that weren't previously affiliated to those militia, but they may be affiliated to other militia. Now, you know, the timing of the deal is interesting because, I mean, mid-April is, 6 weeks from now. So, you know, it's very difficult to actually see that these armed groups are going to just go to their bases and leave everything the way it is. Because Libya still has a lot of resources, and, you know, these armed groups have their own interests in the conflict.
Okay, and Ibrahim, how sure are we that this time around that countries won't go against the resolution that was taken by the United Nations Security Council that no arms must be supplied to these groups?
That's a very unlikely to happen. Now, what we've seen in the past few weeks is that, President Erdogan of Turkey visits Egypt, and there seems to be a rapprochement between, the Turks, the Egyptians, the Emiratis, and the Saudis. At least détente more than a rapprochement. And so, they then may lead, it may lead to at least allow for events in Libya to be a bit more stable. But, this is the big problem, is that these militia groupings get their funding, and these political parties get their funding from these neighboring states. Egypt is unlikely going to stop supporting Khalifa after it shares a border with Libya. It's very fearful of the participatory democratic Islamists, which it sees the West is, and so it's not going to stop its support. So too, the Turks at the moment are a bit more cautious, mainly because relations with Greece and Egypt are a bit better. But if again there's something that threatens the Turkish maritime exploration, and that's why it signed the deal with Turkey, Turkey is very likely to intervene again. So when we look at the Turkish conflict, the Libyan conflict, similar to how when we look at the Yemeni conflict and what's happening in Sudan, the Security Council is very powerless, mainly because the conflict is not necessarily fueled by UN Security Council members, but actually by regional powers. Many of them who have much money, much interest, and because there is no actual sanction for infringements, especially at the state level, these countries are, there is no incentive, or at least punishment that will actually stop, in a sense, disincentivize them to carry on intervening in the country's politics. And that's why we see, it's very likely that, there's the de facto split that seems to be benefiting the both at the moment. But, once there's an election, there's no telling what will then happen.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Ibrahim Dean is a researcher and political analyst. It's 3:30. It's time for the news headlines.
Thanks, Aldrin. A very good afternoon. With the news headlines, Kemudupi Makhalemele. Tensions are flaring in Sandton, where suspended Judge Nana Makubele is appearing before the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. The ANC says it is not going to compromise the rule of law for expediency. And China has condemned the visit by American legislatures to Taiwan. Beijing, which claimed the island as its own, says this amounts to interference. I'll be back with all the details at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. Looking okay on the highways around Gauteng this afternoon. The M1 up through Midrand and onwards through to Pretoria looks fine. The M1 from Sunninghill down to Soweto nice and clear, and it's a good time to be on the N3 South before any backlogs. This stage, the N3 between Limro Park and Germiston actually moving okay. A little bit of pressure on Durban's M19. This is for motorists that are moving at the top of Westville, heading out towards New Germany and Claremont. There is the backlog's been very slow since about 1 o'clock this afternoon. Traffic just lining up towards the Dunkeld Road exit. And a busy one around Cape Town today. There's been a crash on the M5 South near Barclay Road in the Maitland area. That queue is right back on the Coburg Road and deep into Brooklyn territory. That's southbound coming through Coburg. Interchange, that delay, and possibly a bit of onlooking going on the northbound because the run up towards the Coburg interchange is very slow. Queuing pressure on the M3 inbound today, which is unusual, up towards Paradise Road. If you're coming in from the Constantia side, as you get up to Bishop's Court and approach Newlands, it's very slow and quite busy coming out of the Cape Town CBD. Baton trucks heavy from Whale Street down to the elevated freeway, and Strand Street very slow both ways between that traffic on Baton Truck and High Level Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
A very good afternoon to you. Let's start things off with rugby. The Sour Springbok scrum half Grant Williams has signed a new contract with the Sharks. The Sharks announced that Williams will be staying at Kings Park until the next World Cup in 2027. Williams has come through the Sharks ranks after moving to Durban to play for a club side College Robbers, and having made his Super Rugby debut back in February 2018, he has tallied 54 first-class appearances for the Sharks, scoring 19 tries. Then in football, Milford FC assistant coach Nkululeko Buthelezi says that his charges will not hold back when they face Kaizer Chiefs in the Nedbank Cup last 32 encounter at FNB Stadium on Sunday. Buthelezi says that he has witnessed the Soweto Giants' famous upset to so-called small teams in the history of the Nedbank Cup teams such as TS Galaxy, Baroka and Richards Bay FC, which gives them confidence